generally don't do. That's what concerned me. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Keep me honest.
Yeah.
I would rather not do that either. I think it's, I think the public ought to be involved with our meetings. If they can.
Well, the public is involved with our meetings, and as Mr. Delaporte always told us, every meeting like this constitutes a legal council meeting.
Well,
can do
those
business
people
as
don't
we-
have to work for a living, and a lot of people do have to
Well-
work for a living.
I apologize.
Thanks.
Hi, Stacy. Matilda.
I'm trying to get my earbud set up. Hello,
I hear
everyone.
ya. Hi. Yep. All right.
Mayor and Matt, it's 4 o'clock. We should probably get rolling.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. It's 4 p.m. on the 22nd, I believe it is, of February. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Mayor Alex Johnson II.
Here.
Councilors Olson,
Here,
Novak,
Here.
Bartholomew. I see you. Okay. Kopczynski,
Here.
Bessie Johnson,
Here.
and Smith.
Here.
All members present, Your Honor.
Well, thank you very much, Gabe. Appreciate it. The next thing is a reading of a Black History Month proclamation. I'll go ahead and do that now. Black History Month, February 2021. Whereas Black History Month reminds us of our responsibility to honor the contributions and achievements of Black and African Americans and their pivotal role in shaping our state, our nation. And whereas Black communities, activists, academics, military and political leaders, artists, and innovators have made long-standing contributions in Oregon's history and helped develop and shape Oregon's heritage and cultural landscape. And whereas the presence and visibility of Black community continues to enhance and shape the quality of life in the city of Albany. And whereas Albany is committed to diversity, equitable, equality, equal opportunity, inclusion, and mutual respect as the fundamental aspects of healthy, thriving community. And whereas the Black community has been a target of discrimination and violence based on their identity, which conflicts with our core values as a community. And whereas Black History Month calls our nation's attention to the continued need to recognize and combat racism and to build a community that lives up to the core values. And whereas Black History Month is a time when all Americans are encouraged to reflect on past successes and challenges of the Black community and to look at the future to ensure freedom, equity, and inclusiveness. Now, therefore, I, Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor of the City of Albany, Oregon, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black History Month in the City of Albany, Oregon. In the witness thereof, whereof I have on hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Albany to be affixed this 22nd day of February 2021. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is business from the public. Was there any business from the public?
No, there isn't, Mayor.
There's no business from the public. So number 4 on the agenda is awards of bids. ST 21-01, 24th Avenue Rehabilitation. Is Stacy here to do her presentation?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor and councilors. So staff is recommending council award contracts for 2 projects today. The 24th Avenue Street Rehabilitation and the Vine Water Treatment Plant improvements. Both of these projects are in the capital improvement program, and there are adequate funds in the budget based on the bids that we received for the two projects. The first one, the 24th Avenue Street Rehabilitation, we received 7 bids ranging from the low bid of approximately $2.4 million to $3.4 million. Staff is recommending council award a contract in the amount of $2,405,326 to the low bidder, Emery & Sons Construction Group. They're located in Salem, Oregon. The second project, we received 5 bids ranging from the low bid of $293,000 to $318,000. For this project, the Vine Water Treatment Plant improvements, staff is recommending council award a contract in the amount of $293,500 to Bodie Construction, and they are located in Staten, Oregon. This is kind of a quick staff report, but I'm trying to keep it short today to be mindful of the limited time we have this meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions that council or the mayor may have on either one of these projects.
Any discussion in council?
I could just say that I'm happy to see 24th Avenue being resurfaced. That used to be a beautiful, smooth street that was a secret cutoff of mine on my way home from work. And over time, it's just gotten really beat up. It's a lot of traffic, and it deserves a little bit of love.
I agree.
Yeah.
I move we approve the contract as proposed.
The motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All against say nay. The motion's passed. Next thing is ratifying appointments to the city citizen advisory groups on page 12 through 21.
Mayor Johnson, I believe we need a second motion for the second award of bid.
Oh, I thought we did. Okay, thank you. I thought we did both at the same time. So
Thank you
very much for that, Holly. So the second for the WTP for 19-02 Vine Water Treatment Plant improvements. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the contract as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this topic? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I don't see the resolution.
Was right after the first one.
Councilor Olson.
Was there a resolution on the agenda?
This is for the award of bids, the second bid.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that part, but I don't see the resolution. Okay, yeah. I'm fine.
Okay, all those against say nay. The motion passed. Okay, ratification of the appointments to the citizen advisory groups on page 12 through 21.
I move to ratify the appointments as presented.
Second.
Yeah.
All those is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those against say nay. Motion passed. The next thing is staff report, city services, utility fee discussion. Peter Trotzen and Gina and Sean Park will be presenting at the meeting.
Good
So, floor is
afternoon,
yours.
Mayor. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
We were moving along quite quickly through the agenda there, so reluctantly, we're going to slow down a little bit right now. This afternoon, I'm going to provide an update on our work to build a city services fee, advise you of key decision points that are coming down the pike, answer any questions you might have and receive any direction that you might want to give at this point with respect to the design and development of this fee. In a moment, I'll turn it over to Sean Park, our IT director and project manager for this effort, along with Deb Gallardi, our consultant. But first, I want to provide some context, especially for the new counselors, but recognizing that we all benefit from summarizing what has got us to this point. As a reminder for everyone, the council have not made any decisions to implement a fee. As a reminder of what we've previously discussed, this city services fee is contemplated to help close the imminent gap between revenues and the cost of city services supported by the general fund and the Parks and Recreation Special Revenue Fund. In the previous two budget cycles, the council has heard about the growing gap between revenue and the cost of city services. As some of you know, the revenues and expenditure imbalance have been recognized for some time, and leadership has been preparing for the possibility of extensive cuts to service levels. In the summer of 2019, following the adoption of the 2019 to 2021 budget, Council discussed the concept of a general fund utility fee. Council's collective sense at that time was that other alternatives should be investigated before making a commitment to a general fund utility fee, and they directed staff to review cost containment measures and alternative revenue sources. Over the course of the ensuing months and several council meetings, staff reviewed 16 different revenue enhancement possibilities and 15 different cost containment measures and provided several recommendations. At council's direction, several of these options were implemented, yielding marginal progress toward closing the looming budget gap. Other options were considered, discussed, and subsequently dismissed. The utility fee, bear with me for a second here. The utility fee remained on the table, subject to further debate, as the only option capable of closing the budget gap in any meaningful way. Although the city services utility fee remained on the table, we noted that the mechanics of setting up the fee would take a substantial amount of time, depending on various factors. One of those factors was the implementation of a new financial system, including a new utility billing module, which went live just recently. The main message being that it was not a source of revenue that could be developed in short order. At the November 18th, 2019 work session, Jeff Blaine provided an extensive brief to the council on the development of the city services fee. He covered service fee basics, evaluated both a transportation fee and a public services fee. He looked at revenue targets, rate structures, fees, and sample bills and forecasts, and we had a good council discussion following the brief. 3 months later, in February of 2020, the coronavirus pandemic was making itself felt in the US, and we declared an emergency here in Albany. Emergencies were declared at the county and state level too, and the intention of the entire city staff was diverted to dealing with the ramifications of the coronavirus. As you'll recall, with the overnight shutdown of almost all interpersonal activities, the effects were immediately felt in parks and recreation programs and in programs funded by transient lodging tax. In July 2020, we briefed the council on the projections for service reductions anticipated with the 2022 to 23 biennium. With time continuing to advance, concerns mounted about the structural imbalance and its effects on the budget for the next biennium. At the September 21st work session, we requested the council's authorization to begin work on constructing the city services fee. Because building a utility is not a quick and simple action, if there was to be any chance of avoiding significant service level reductions, we needed to engage our consultant and get going on the considerable work that would have to be done. And it's not simply a question of this coming biennium. Costs continue to rise at a rate faster than the growth in revenues, and this imbalance will persist for the foreseeable future. There are only 3 remaining options for dealing with this. Number 1, cut services and continue to cut services as long as the imbalance persists. Number 2, identify a new revenue source to help pay for the services desired by citizens and mandated by the state. Or number 3, a combination of 1 and 2 that will bring the revenue expenditure relationship into balance. This mechanism, this city services fee, will be needed. And given the fact that it will be needed, the work must be performed so that the city will have it available when the council decides that no further service reductions should be made. To illustrate the proposal, I used the analogy of building a vehicle that the council would be able to put in a garage. When the decision is ultimately made, the council will be able to put the key in, turn the ignition, and drive the vehicle. But if the car isn't built, there will be a long lag time between the decision to drive and the ability to drive. Council approved the proposal, and we engaged Deb Ghilardi for her expert assistance. In October of 2020, to help better understand the Oregon property tax system and the effects of compression, we heard a presentation from Carol Samuels and Don Hudson. Carol and Don covered measures 5, 47, and 50. And while their presentation didn't give me the ability to describe the Oregon property tax system, I think it effectively communicated how Byzantine, bizarre, and inequitable the system is. Perhaps most important, it showed that the Oregon property tax system, because of the limitations enshrined in law, will never be able to provide the revenue to pay for the services that Oregonians want and expect. And in some cases, for the services that they must have in order to comply with state law. Cities are left to their own devices to find this revenue. And last week, though we specifically did not have budget meetings during our retreat, you did hear from presenters about the challenges facing them in the next biennium. Given the city's conservative fiscal policy, the size of the budget gap has gotten marginally smaller, as expected. But a gap is still there, and it poses a very real challenge affecting the entire spectrum of city services. That brings us to today. I committed to regularly informing you of our progress. Under Sean Park's expert project management and armed with Deb Ghilardi's subject matter expertise, a small team has been designing this car. It's nothing fancy, but a mechanism of this type will eventually be required if city services are not to be continuously whittled away. This is why so many other Oregon cities have turned to utility fees as a means of funding important city services. The fact is this: while you have considerable control over expenditures, you have very limited control of revenue in the general fund. You can control SDCs, you can control franchise fees, you can control fees for service, and we can search for and request grant funding. But you cannot control property tax, and it is severely restricted. However, the costs of complying with state mandates, the costs of insurance, the costs of software license, all of those are out of our control. So we've begun designing and developing a city services fee that, if implemented, would fund services in public safety, parks, and library, and would provide the council with a little more control over revenue. You'll next hear from Sean and from Deb Ghilardi about the work that's been done to lay the groundwork. The new utility billing module of our financial system is now online. Sean is definitely managing the efforts to build the vehicle. There is a lot of work being done to build databases, and we meet weekly on Mondays to gauge progress. We're making good progress in building that vehicle. Nevertheless, as I previously mentioned to you, we can go only so far before we'll have to obtain the city's buy-in and direction, a confirmation that this is the direction in which the city wants to go. It's a difficult time to consider increasing the financial burden on ourselves, and it has to be carefully weighed against the services that will be lost. Here is a graph which depicts what has happened to your city staff in the recent past. The blue vertical bars represent the population of the city. The red line represents the number of FTE, or full-time equivalents, on the staff. As you can see, we have shrunk in size. The bulk of that pain has been borne by the Parks Department, and the sharp drop that you see there shows the effects of the pandemic. So that steep decline will become less steep without any intervention, but the overall downward trend will continue. The city is a service organization. We serve. And with fewer people, we can provide fewer services. At this point, let me introduce Sean Parks. He didn't realize when he accepted the director position that he'd find himself knee-deep in trying to save city services, but he is. And so, Sean, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Can everyone hear me okay? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, Sean.
Thank you. Just waiting 1 second while I'm made a presenter to share my screen map.
Oh, you should have. Oh, maybe because I took control. Sorry. I thought it was a lasting effect. 1 second. There you go.
Thank you. Excuse me. As Peter mentioned, we had a council brief session on July 20 of 2020 last year, and after which we had an additional session whereby City Council approved our efforts to contract with a consultant in order to drive the construction of a utility fee forward. On October 28th, 2020, City Council approved the special procurement to enter into a contract with Gallardi Consulting, who also worked with the city for the 2017 Stormwater Fee Project. A project kickoff meeting was held on November 1. And beginning in November of 2020, the city team has been consistently working with Gallardi Consulting on the data used to generate fee options. This is a very large data set containing the past year's utility billing data for all the city's customers. This work consists of a cycle of data extraction from the utility billing system, and then a data analysis on that set, an adjustment, then another extraction and another analysis, and so on. The purpose of repeating this cycle is to ensure we provide Gallardi Consulting an accurate set of data upon which to build the fee options. And during the council retreat in February, as Peter mentioned, Council was provided an update on the progress of the fee project and an overview of why the fee is needed. And this first slide here kind of shows the timeline to date and where we are at this moment. This leads up to a council decision on March 22nd of 2021. I apologize that my timeline got skewed a little bit here. But our goal is to provide fee options to the city council at the March 22nd work session in order for the council to have an opportunity for a decision on a fee at the March 24 session. And moving on to the subsequent timeline, after that decision point on March 22, we would move into an awareness campaign, which provides an opportunity for the city to inform the citizens on why the fee is needed, what it is, and what the impacts will be. Also in April, the city team will begin building the fee structure within the Springbrook utility billing system, and billing cycles which contain the new fee will be tested. In July, we would have the potential to enter into the first billing cycle, which would contain the new fee. And in July, late July and August, potentially would be when the new fee revenues would be coming in with the paid bills. And that is the where we came from and where we are today timeline in the project for the utility fee. Are there any questions or clarifications I can provide on this timeline? Well, thank you for your time.
It looks like Councilor Johnson and Councilor Kopczynski both have questions.
Yes. So if I would imagine this, Sean, I'm sorry, this would is under the presumption that it would just be implemented and not taken to the voters, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sean, Sean, and I guess towards Peter, has there been any type of determination as to which departments would be affected by this? Or is everybody gets an equal share in this, or some are more important or more required than others? I mean, like, for example, some departments have the opportunity to do levies, others don't. Others, you've got the low-hanging fruit, which a lot of people, try and go after, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder if there's any type of prioritization that is coming from you, Peter.
Right. There is the way that department directors are working on their budgets right now is to take reductions across the board. And then if the city services fee was approved by the council wanted to, and one of the decisions that you'll have to make if you go down that road is the level at which you want to implement the fee. So that will determine what the revenues will be, and then those will be returned back to department heads to restore services based on the priorities that they've used thus far. So in essence, it'll be if they have had to reduce services in their department and they've prioritized A, B, and C, then presumably they will restore those services in that reverse order. So none of those are identified yet. You heard from many department directors during the retreat what services would have to be cut in order to meet the budget. And right now they're operating on the assumption that this fee will not be implemented. So when it is, if it is, that will just return some of those resources to them to restore some of those services.
So I think Councilor Olson was next.
Yes, I'm wondering if you've figured out a way that lower income people can have a lower fee and higher income people can have a higher fee.
Yes, that will certainly, well, I'll wait for Sean and Deb to address that, but that will certainly be part of the fee structure.
Good, thank you.
I didn't see any other hands.
Mayor Johnson, do you have a question?
Councilor Kopczynski has a question.
Just one question. Is there any consideration being given to how surrounding communities near us or relatively close to us in population are in fact doing once they have utilized a utility fee?
Councilor Kopczynski, I would recommend that you ask Ms. Ghilardi that question when she's presenting. She really is an expert on the subject.
Councilor Novak.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, this fee then wouldn't be based on the usage of the utilities per household. It's not based on, a percentage of your bill.
That's a great question, Councilor Novak.
Yeah, so this is what we're doing tonight is giving you an update on the progress that we've made so far. So I would recommend that we hear from Deb now. And some of these questions that you're asking are very good questions, and they refer to or they have to do with what the utility will ultimately look like. But what the utility will ultimately look like is dependent upon some decisions that you all have to make. So if with your indulgence, I'd like to turn it over to Deb for her part of the presentation.
Okay, let me get into my presentation mode here. Just a second. Okay, can you see the presentation here?
You see your speaker's notes.
Yes.
Oh, just the speaker notes? Oh, that's interesting.
No, we can see both the slide and the notes.
Yeah, swap displays, basically.
What's that?
Swap displays. It had the slide and the speaker's notes, the presenter view.
Okay, let's see. That's a new one. So view. Let's try.
Probably be under the slideshow setup.
Slideshow from beginning. Let's try that.
There you
There
you go.
Go under the where it says display settings at the top. Oh, whoop.
Okay.
While you're in there.
Okay. Yeah. See, unfortunately, I'm seeing something different than you are.
Yeah.
So apologies. I'm not as skilled with this format, this platform.
Yeah.
So
she had it showing just perfectly a couple times already.
Yeah.
Well, it would be bigger and easier for you to see if she swapped.
if it's just the
Yeah.
So what was your recommendation in terms
So
of
go back
getting it
into slideshow from the beginning.
Okay, slideshow from the beginning.
And then at the top of the screen you're not seeing that, are you?
I'm not seeing that. Yep, all I'm seeing is it looks
Never
perfect
mind,
on mine.
You can't do it.
Yeah, because I can't even see my speaker notes. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
You
There-
all can tell me what I'm supposed to say.
I guess, yeah.
Looks
Sorry
fine
about
at my
that.
end. That just went
Let me
backwards.
just try one other thing here. Let me go to I thought if I turned off the notes, then maybe that'll work. Let's see.
It'll be under the slideshow tab. That's just your view in the program.
Okay.
So stop sharing, fix it, and then come back in. It'll be easier.
Okay. Or you can, Sean, do you want to, maybe you have it and you could just run it off of yours?
Deb, I have it, and I'd be happy to run it. I've got it right
Okay.
now.
Why don't you do that, Peter? That sounds easier. I'll stop sharing.
Did the council get a copy of this, Peter?
We can send it to you. You don't have one now, but we can certainly send it to you.
I think we'd all appreciate it.
Yeah.
Stand by. All right.
Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and start talking here. Apologies for the technical difficulties. But as Sean did a great job of laying out the timeline, and as he mentioned, we are in the process of evaluating options. My scope of work basically includes 3 components. The first is to identify rate structure options for consideration, and we're doing that through 2 mechanisms. One is research with what other cities are charging, including some of your surrounding communities. As Peter mentioned, there are dozens of other cities that are charging utility fees for services beyond just the traditional water, wastewater, stormwater services, for reasons that you all are considering this as an option. Great, thanks, Peter. If you can go to the next slide. So the first phase here in the rate structure evaluation includes that case study research, as I mentioned. The other review is an internal review of your billing system and your customer data, because we need to make sure that whatever structure we select can be implemented, that you have the information that would serve as the basis for how you were to assess the fees. And so we've done an evaluation of that and considered which options are feasible, all of which are currently being used in other communities to assess similar fees. And so where we are now is developing those options. And as was mentioned, that includes the need to really evaluate the number of customers. We need to have an accurate account of the number of customers and the different units that we're considering for the rate structure, so that when we make projections of revenue that you might receive from these fees using different rate structures and different fee levels, we can be as accurate as possible so you have a basis from which to build your services. We also need to then be able to talk about the impacts to customers in the context of their total utility bill, because this is a fee that would appear on the utility bill. So just in terms of how would different rate structures impact different customer types, and then what's the impact overall on someone's utility bill if another utility fee was added. And then we will, at the time when we look at present that information to you with actual numbers, we will also provide some comparisons with other utilities. We are not going to be talking about numbers this afternoon because we are in the process, as I said, of doing that technical analysis. The final phase of the work is development of the implementation plan. As noted, one of the questions of, you need to have policies in place about how you're going to, billing policies in terms of how are you going to deal with low income? Are you going to provide a discount for this fee specifically, or is the discount applied to the bill in total? All of those sorts of things to be worked out as part of an implementation plan. So, and that involves discussions with different departments who would be actually implementing the fee, and then making sure that you have the structure in place so that you could begin charging that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Just to give you a little bit of information at a high level on what our findings were from the case studies. We, as I said, there's dozens of cities that charge these fees. We chose 7 that represent different or small and medium-sized cities. We looked at 3 main areas of inquiry: the fee context, why were they looking to implement the fee, the fee types, and policies around the fee. Of course, we also gathered information on the fee levels, but as I mentioned, we'll bring those back at the next meeting in the context of running specific options for your fee. As with your situation, these fees were put in place in these other jurisdictions in order to generally retain public services. Everyone is similarly facing gaps in revenue with needed services, and these fees have been implemented in order to help close that funding gap. Many cases, cuts in services are still needed, but they do provide an important way to retain high priority services. In some cases, they're put in place to expand service for a particular type of service, like levels of service for parks or officers per 1,000 to maintain certain levels, specific service levels. There's a combination of fees approaches in terms of some cities will implement multiple fees that are specific to a type of service. So maybe you'll have one fee for public safety, one fee for parks, another one for transportation, another one for libraries. Or there's also examples of cities that are charging a single fee that then applies to multiple services. So both approaches are used, and we are looking at, for purposes of this evaluation, a multi-service fee that could be applied potentially to parks and other services. The policies that are most critical to evaluating and identifying with respect to these fees are, for one thing, who will they apply to? Are there going to be exemptions? For example, will they apply, in your case and in many cases, water and wastewater service may be provided to outside city customers? Will the fee be inside city, or geographical differences? Will they apply to undeveloped property or just developed property? Those sorts of considerations. Generally, these are applied to inside city customers and developed property. Supplemental services, like oftentimes you'll have water meters or water customers that are like irrigation or fire hydrants. Those are the sort of things that we would generally not assess a fee for. You would assess the fee to the customer's primary service, but not to supplemental services like irrigation and fire. So that's why a lot of evaluation has to, and review of the billing data has to occur to make sure that we are identifying the right population of accounts and accurately counting the potential number of bills that would be assessed. Low income discounts, whether they're fee specific. So there are a number of the communities do provide a lower fee for the specific utility fee. Others will just provide a % discount, for example, on the total utility bill. So both options could be considered. And then billing practices with respect to the fee, what to do about delinquencies and those sorts of things. So we're having all those discussions as part while we do the technical analysis also. Okay, let's go to the next slide and talk about the fee structures. So there are a number of different approaches being used, and they differ with respect to, do you charge the same per unit no matter which customer class? So there's generally some kind of a scaling mechanism. So not all customers would be charged the same, but they might be charged the same cost per unit. So I might have, for example, a multifamily residential customer might be charged the same amount as a single family residential, but they would pay more because they have more dwelling units. Some cities use meter size as a scaling measure. So and that would be the water meter. A larger water meter can be a factor in terms of the size of the building, the number of people served by that meter. That could be, more customers coming in and out, more employees, those sorts of things, all which have potential for use of these public services that we're talking about. So there is a reasonable rational nexus to charging based on the number of the meter size, the number of units. And some jurisdictions will charge based on the number of accounts, but they'll have a higher fee per account for non-residential customers. Again, owing to the fact that non-residential can have, be associated with larger buildings and more people coming and going. And you can also have situations where, like, for example, Salem, where there are different charges within a customer class. So in Salem, for one of their utility fees, they have a residential stormwater charges currently, where you have kind of a small first tier, a medium tier, and then a larger tier. So all of these structures we have the data to develop them, you have the ability to implement them, and they're all deemed as defensible, acceptable within industry standard practice for equitable cost recovery for utility fees. And it really comes down to a policy decision. So let's go to the next slide. So there's three main policy areas that you'll need to consider as we move forward, and in particular in March when we come back to you with actual options. One is the rate structure. And so that will be how are we going to assess the fee, and is that fee going to recognize differences in potentially cost of services between classes or within the class of customers? And we'll bring you multiple options to consider with actual numbers associated with those. And then for within any rate structure, once you make that decision, what is the fee level going to be? And we will, when we bring back some potential fee levels, we will also be able to translate into that into potential revenue recovery, so that you can see the trade-off in terms of, lower fee means lower revenue, and determine at what range the council might be most comfortable in terms of looking at fee levels. And then, as I said, the other policies with respect to billing practices, those exemption discounts, we will certainly bring to you recommendations based on what other cities are doing, and consistency with the council's other current practices with respect to the utilities, and consistency with other policies. So our next steps, the last slide. Oh, I think you have to click a couple more times probably. Is to develop those options for the rate structures, the fee and revenue estimates. And if you'll click through one more time, bring that back to council in March, along with, and continue developing that implementation plan. And as Sean mentioned, that will include not only looking at the billing practices and things, but also public education and outreach. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Bartholomew? Oh, Councilor Johnson.
Okay, that's fine. Just have a couple things. One of them I think was answered, that it'll be on every bill, residential and non-residential, correct?
That's generally the case, yes, because they're all create the need for services.
Right. Okay. And that, does that mean also? I mean, that's every bill. That means nonprofits and everything, correct?
Yes, and that's typically the way it's done. But again, that would be a policy decision of council.
Okay. And then the other thing is, kind of, if we do the fee and it just comes into the general fund, would it not be better to designate where it's going? Kind of like if we did a gas tax, we're doing that, and it's going to be for roads. Okay. Now this, I'm afraid if we just bring the money in, we assess the fee and it goes general fund, will it not pit one department against the other, saying, well, they got more than we did, and that type of a thing? And that's kind of iffy too. I know it's the never answered question, but what do we do about that? Thank you.
Mayor, with your permission.
Yes, please, Peter.
Yeah, so that was, Councilor Johnson, that was one of the questions that was asked before Deb gave her presentation about how would you send it back? And, as I mentioned, each of the department directors are making the cuts that they need to make And we would return funds to them. We don't anticipate that this is going to make up the full gap. So if they have cut A, B, and C, and we are able to return some funding to them, they will probably be able to restore A and B. So funds will go back to department directors to roll back those service cuts that they've made. And that's the plan right now. Obviously, we can target specific functions, but the department directors are in the best position to know what the highest priorities are for the services that they've cut.
Okay. I have to think on that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, Council? I think that's it. Thank you so much for your presentation. Is it Deb Gallardi? Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, Sean. We definitely would like, I believe the council would like a copy of that presentation. And I'm sure Peter and Sean will have questions coming from us. I didn't see any other hands raised by the council. Let me go to my agenda. Oh, Councilor Olson, please.
Yeah, well, the presentation that she's going to send to us, will that show what other cities are charging for these fees?
We'll be bringing that information back at the next meeting.
Oh, okay. And will it be large enough print that we can actually see it on the screen?
We could certainly edit to increase the font size. No problem.
I think my screen is smaller than most, but I can see the large print. I can't see the small stuff.
No problem.
Councilor Kopczynski, do you have something?
I think.
Nope. Councilor Johnson?
No, I was going to say, Ray was muted. I didn't hear anything.
Oh, it was just a comment on how big. Do you have a roller ball on your mouse on the top? A little roller by your finger on your mouse? Dick?
Pardon me?
Dick, do you have a little roller ball on your mouse right above your index finger? On your mouse?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold down your control button on your keyboard, and you can, when you're in a screen, you can roll that mouse and enlarge your screen and enlarge your print.
Really? No, that's interesting.
Okay, so next thing on the agenda is business from the council.
I just had mine.
So I have Councilor Kopczynski, you're first up on the screen.
I just had mine with Dick.
You just had yours with Councilor Olson. Councilor Smith.
Nothing this evening.
Okay, thank you, Marilyn. Councilor Olson.
Yeah, one of my constituents called me, and she needs a large dumpster to clean up some stuff that she has. And she was calling around to see if there are other companies besides our regular garbage company. And she was told that she cannot have anybody else come and serve her with a dumpster. And I'm wondering if I'm sure that's the case. And so I'm wondering, do we keep track of what our garbage company is charging for a large dumpster and make sure that those charges are similar to what other companies in other cities might charge? And I'm wondering if she feels she's being taken advantage of. And I wonder if we can come back Wednesday and tell me how that all works, and whether she's being charged fairly by, what's the name of our garbage company?
Republic Services.
Republic Services. Are they being fair with her, or is she being taken advantage of? And secondly, say somebody wants to tear down a building here in Albany. I would guess that a major part of that cost is going to be getting rid of the stuff? And can they look around and find people to haul it off at better prices than Republic Services will charge, or just what the situation is? I wasn't able to answer her questions. I'd like to be able to.
Councilor Olson, we've provided your constituent with the name of Julie Jackson, who is the municipal services representative for Republic Services. And I'm hopeful that she has called Julie to voice her concern. But we can certainly come back Wednesday with the answer to your question, which is, are their rates competitive? So, but they do hold the franchise within the city.
Yeah, I think the rest of the council would be interested in that too. Thank you.
Thank you to Councilor Olson. Thank you, Peter. Councilor Novak, you're next up.
Thank you. I guess I'll piggyback on this. So I can understand that Republic has a franchise for trash pickup. I think that in business, competition is good. And I think that it would be good if we had options for people, that they weren't restricted to one company and one company only. If that is the case, I'd like to know why that's the case and how long that's been the case, and what we can do to open the door to competition, which will lower the prices regardless of what they currently are. I don't see any reason why any one company, and again, with all due respect to Republic Services, why any one company should have a complete and total monopoly with regard to dumpster services. So I would appreciate information on that and how we can open things up.
Councilor Johnson had a question.
Well, just a statement that before my husband retired, you know, the thing to do is we can't infringe on Republic Services franchise, but if they can find someone that has a dump truck, you know, that does that service, construction company or just a regular service, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because, you know, he used to do, you know, well, when people would tear down or rebuild or something, you know, that's what he had. So that might be an option, is to find, you know, some company that has a dump truck that might do it that way.
Well, I guess my question would be whether that infringes on Republic's franchise.
I don't think it does. I've seen private, you know,
Oh,
contracts with dump trucks service to my house. So
You bet.
I don't think that's a problem. But we can also have Julie come back and talk to us about it. So I think Peter's gonna set that up. So next is Councilor Bartholomew. Do you have anything for the council today?
Not today, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's everyone. All I have today is it's been wet. People are driving a little too fast in some areas. And please make sure everyone, you know, turns their lights on, because right now a silver car disappears a block and a half away with no lights on. So just be safe and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Wait, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, can I just pass on to you that all the slides have been sent to you in the last couple of minutes that you asked about?
Yes, thank
just
you.
remind you about Wednesday evening's joint meeting with the HRC that Dr. Heyman is going to facilitate for us. And then lastly, you'll need to go out of this meeting and come back into the joint meeting with the Planning Commission via a separate link.
All right.
So that's all your report, Peter? All your report? Okay, so the next meeting is Monday, March the 8th for work session at 4 p.m. and Wednesday, March 10th at 6 p.m. And so I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Goodbye.